Why do Brazilians speak Portuguese and not Spanish? Brazil is the only Latin American nation that chooses Portuguese rather than Spanish as the official language. If a tourist did not do his homework properly and learns well about the country he is visiting before travelling to the country, he may be shocked to learn that Portuguese is the Brazilian lingua franca. The reason why such first-time visitors to Brazil may be perplexed is understandable. Spanish is the language of the vast majority of countries in South America, with Portuguese a close second. Brazilian neighbours such as Argentina, Uruguay, Venezuela and Peru have Spanish as their official language. Then the question is perfectly in order. Why do Brazilians speak Portuguese and not Spanish? The answer to that question is both intriguing and revealing. Discovery of Brazil. Since the late 15th century, a large number of European navigators have traversed the Atlantic in quest of uncharted territory. Christopher Columbus crossed the Atlantic Ocean, as did John Cabot, Ferdinand Magellan, Giovanni de Verrazano and Pedro Alvarez Cabral, among others. Soon after Christopher Columbus found America, Spain moved quickly to establish control over the continent before any other country could do so. Unfortunately for them, Portugal also chose to go on a trip to the New World, this time to the Americas. In 1494, Spain and Portugal signed the Treaty of Tordesillas, which established a line of demarcation between their respective empires and divided their claims along that line. Spain would be granted access to all of the regions west of the line if this occurred. In any case, there was a lot more territory to be explored on the other side of the boundary line. This enabled Spain to occupy the majority of what is now known as Latin America. And it is for this reason that nations such as Argentina, Chile, Panama and Costa Rica all use the Spanish language. Brazil can be said to be officially discovered in 1500. A fleet commanded by Portuguese diplomat Pedro Alvarez Cabral was on its way to India when it landed in Porto Seguro, a location between Salvador and Rio de Janeiro. This Portuguese explorer, together with his crew, is credited with discovering Brazilian South America. The place they landed is near present-day Bahia off the eastern coast of South America. Several years after this discovery by Cabral, the Portuguese started colonizing the area now known as Brazil. Of course, there is, however, almost unassailable evidence that other Portuguese adventurers preceded Cabral. For instance, in his book De Situ Orbis, Duarte Pacheco Pereira hints at being in Brazil in 1498 when he was sent by King Manuel of Portugal. All that notwithstanding, a fact stands out: Brazil was discovered by a group of Portuguese. That fact is crucial to the search for the answer to the question, why do Brazilians speak Portuguese and not Spanish? Colonization of Brazil. Colonization of Brazil began around the period from 1500 with the Portuguese, and it remained colonized until 1815, when the nation of Brazil was elevated to a kingdom in connection with Portugal. Initially, the Portuguese colonization of Brazil took a quite different dimension from the Spanish conquest of the Americas. Evangelization and trade were the tools of colonization used by the Portuguese, with which they were already succeeding as they trafficked captured humans to be enslaved. Viewing Brazil also as a trading post rather than a place to send larger numbers of settlers, the Portuguese strategized differently in the territory. The indigenous inhabitants of the territory now known as Brazil were at that time not like living in the extensive stone-built cities of Andes and Mesoamerica. They lived in villages. The Portuguese didn't launch large military campaigns in their attempt to conquer empires. Rather, they engaged in trade with native Brazilians. But there were smaller-scale battles against rival groups. Brazil eventually got its name from the first export to Europe of a tree that produces a red dye, Brazilwood. Portugal's primary interest in Brazil at the time of its colonization was the Brazilwood, a valuable variety of trees that were so common in the country. Also around that time, another commodity, sugarcane, has been increasingly commercially attractive to Portugal. Sugarcane quickly rose to become the most important crop in Brazil. Sugarcane was in high demand in the late 16th century, and it played a significant role in the development of Brazil's economy. As a result, Brazilian plantation owners began relocating their operations inland in search of more fertile terrain. They uncovered a significant amount of gold during their trips, particularly in Minas Gerais, Brazil. Subsequently, there was a gold rush in the nation, which resulted in the country's further development. Over the following century, the boundaries of modern Brazil were expanded and firmly established. The nation's economy was eventually molded to grow into what it is now. As a result of the Treaty of Tordesillas, Spain began colonizing everything west of the river. Portugal, on the other hand, only received a little strip of land off the coast of the Atlantic. This area of a territory consisted primarily of the coast of Brazil. Brazilian Portuguese language. It's now obvious that there were a large number of indigenous people living in Brazil prior to the arrival of the Portuguese. And for sure, people numbering millions were communicating not in Portuguese. Inevitably, as history progressed, the European Portuguese of the colonists began to incorporate bits and pieces of dialect from other languages into their language. Indigenous languages such as Tupi and Guarani had a significant impact on the development of the Brazilian Portuguese language as it is spoken now in the country. Furthermore, African slaves who were transported to Brazil made significant contributions to the language by introducing their own dialects. Today there are only minor changes in vocabulary and grammar between Brazilian and European Portuguese, but there are significant variances in pronunciation. Despite this, the two languages are very similar in their overall structure. We hope you will from this find an answer to the question, why do Brazilians speak Portuguese and not Spanish? Please tell us what you feel or know about this historical piece in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. This is Learning Canteen.